All right. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to something different. A little while ago, in the Team Human Facebook page, one of the admins uh, made a post that inspired me to think about ways that I could help other people with my knowledge. For those of you that have watched my stream, watched my YouTube channel, you know there's a lot of bad stuff going on in my life right now. And I can't currently work and things like that. And so I'm kind of a down person right now. And so this is an attempt to do something a little more up, to do something that has a possibility of helping people and just doing something kind of cool. So this, if you hadn't read the title yet, this is not going to be me streaming gameplay or me giving, dungeon mastering tips or anything like this. This is going to be me talking about the application and interview process that I am familiar with from working in management and staffing for about 4 years. I ran dozens of interviews. I helped out with staffing and training and things like that. I used to train people for interviews. And right now, with the fact that the U.S. economy is coming out of a recession, we're seeing economic growth and things like that. The job market is growing. That means a lot more people are going to be doing this. And I figured having a leg up in this process and knowing the parts of the process that are just there to annoy you, and knowing the parts of the process that are actual, really, really useful and really important would be helpful for people. And I am joined by the wonderful Teal Rochelle. I'm saying your name right. Teal, right?
Yes,
Okay.
that is right.
I just realized I'd never actually said your name out loud. So Teal has been kind enough to volunteer to be interviewed by me, and she also has given me a resume that I'm going to critique for you guys. So just as a little side note, the resume I'm going to be showing you is not her actual resume for privacy reasons. I've changed a few things on there. I've changed a couple jobs and things just on the weird off chance that somebody decided they wanted to try and use that information to do something naughty. We changed a couple things. They're not big enough that they're going to change the interview process. It just makes it more difficult for you to figure out like where she went to college or what street she might have lived on. Those security question things that a lot of people don't think about. Yeah, the first thing we're going to do, actually, and I'm going to change out of studio mode here to make it a little easier on me. The first thing we're going to do is feel free, if you are watching, we do have, I do have chat up, and I think, Teal, you've got it up too somewhere or can find it eventually. If not, I will
Yeah.
relay chat to her. Feel free to ask questions and stuff like that. We will have a formal Q&A at the end if you have any questions about the stuff I've said or the stuff that Teal has said. And feel free to comment and stuff like that while we're going through stuff like this because, again, the entire purpose of this is to actually help people. And as much as I'm going to give the information that I wish I had known before I started, interviewing and things like that, your experience may vary. You may have other questions. We want to hear them. So feel free to ask us any questions that you have. And if you miss any of this, it will be uploaded to my YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/TrainerJody. Let's start off with, so getting the job starts off with the application process. There is a lot of the application process that is designed specifically to weed out potential applicants. Not weed out bad applicants, just weed out applicants in general. For years in this country, and in a lot of countries, we have had a lot more, we've had more jobs than we have had we've had more people looking for jobs than we have had job positions for them. So that's what's called an employer's marketplace. And it means that the employer is going to get a lot more applications for jobs than they actually need to fill them. And it means that they can be choosy. However, if you get, 50 or 60 applications for a single position, reading through 60 applications takes forever. As I'm going to show you as I go over just a single resume, it takes forever. So they add additional things to the process that will make it so they don't even have to look at your application. They can just throw it out automatically. And one of those things that annoys me the most, because I had to learn about it in the degree I'm currently getting, which is marketing management, is personality typing. Depending on the jobs that you're applying for, you may or may not have to deal with this, but it's becoming much, much more widespread as a way to weed out applicants. And those are those things where they give you a bunch of questions and you have 5 options: strongly agree, agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree. And they just give you a bunch of things like, I believe that stealing from your employer is wrong. Stuff like that. Those are based on psychology. A couple companies, Walmart, and I can't remember the other ones. I know Walmart was one of the bigger one. Back in the 90s, I think it was, or late 80s, they spent millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars developing these things as a way to try and make it easier to find good candidates for work. And the 2 ones that are used most popularly are called the Myers-Briggs personality type or the Big 5 personality type. Those are the ones that are used most often. Myers-Briggs is the one that most people are familiar with because they give you a 4-letter code that tells you who you are. The issue with these is they're used to screen applicants. There are very useful uses of these personality things in training, in being able to pair up and create teams and things like that. You can use these personality tests to make really effective teams because it shows you how people enjoy interacting with other people, how they work together. That's not what they use them for. They use them to weed out applications, and studies have shown over the past couple decades they are about as accurate at predicting a good employee as a coin toss. They're just about useless. However, they're used extensively in the retail industry, and they're being used a lot more in other places to weed out applications simply because it's easy. And it's a really, really easy way. Most companies will have like a grading system where you'll have, like, one of the companies that I won't name I worked for had a color grading system. You had green, yellow, red. Green meant you could sign them up for an interview and hire them if you want. Yellow meant if you wanted to bring them in for an interview, you had to contact HR. And because HR was so busy, it wasn't happening. Red meant you're not hiring them. Doesn't matter if they're the best employee in the world. If they answered the questions wrong on there, you're not able to hire them. And I had that happen a couple of times with people that I really wanted to hire and I couldn't, simply because they got dinged in the system by these personality tests. I would love to tell you how to beat them. I can't, because they changed them they changed them enough that you can't technically beat them. But I can tell you the best thing you can do in there is avoid agree and disagree. You want to strongly agree or strongly disagree on anything, or be neutral, because that gives you what they want. They want people that have passion, and that shows up in the personality typing. Beyond that, try to be honest. Don't try to give them what they want. They have questions in there specifically designed to show people that are trying to game the system, despite the fact that the system is broken. So yeah, once you get past that, I highly recommend everyone should have a resume. Even if you are forced to put all the information on your resume into a separate application, or they don't require a resume or something, you should have a resume. It is a fantastic tool for you to have all the information that you need to apply for a job. It's a great way to sell yourself to a new employer. And when used correctly, it helps the interviewer to know what questions they should ask to better be able to know you. The secret of interviewing is interviewers want to hire you. They don't want to interview 500 people. They really don't. They would love to hire the first person they interview. Unfortunately, they can't because they have to make sure that they're getting good quality hires, and there's a lot of really stupid things they have to go through. So we're going to start off with Teal's resume here. So I'm going to switch over. So this is the resume that she sent me. The first thing that I, as an employer, am going to look at is I'm going to look at format. Again, up until fairly recently, you've had an employer's marketplace. They have a lot more people applying for jobs than there are jobs available. So people that are processing interviews and stuff like that are going to look for really, really quick ways to just go, okay, we can throw that one out. Format is the first one. This format here is a very, very common format. This is going to look very familiar to anyone that is looking at a resume, and that means I'm going to be able to find the stuff that I want to know right now. So we have this part here, professional experience. This is what she's getting paid to do. Very simple. She lists the things that she actually does. She actually gives the job title. As crazy as it sounds, job titles are really important. It sounds stupid, but I missed out on a lot of opportunities in management simply because my job title was sales specialist instead of sales manager. And I even started listing on my resume sales manager, and then I would put in parentheses specialist. Simply because they would throw my resume out if they didn't see the word manager on there. So make sure you are listing your actual job title on there. Do not lie on your resume. It's a bad idea. And then this is a really, really good way. There are things on here that are good. Things like build brand recognition. That is a corporate term that corporations love. They like build brand recognition. It's a marketing term. Listing that on your resume makes you that much more valuable. Social media marketing, another buzzword. As much as it sucks, you really do need to learn the lingo of the environment that you're going into. And things like social media marketing, brand recognition, budget records and donor database, these are all things that are going to mean something to your interviewer. So learn the lingo. It's not that difficult to learn. You don't need a master's degree or anything like that. It simply takes a quick internet search and looking at job descriptions, seeing what keywords show up in there. Same thing is here. Do I have something else going? No, I don't. Okay. So yeah, that's relatively, and then dates. Dates are always important. If there are ever gaps in your employment history, that is going to pop for interviewers because they're going to want to know why there's a gap in your employment history. Or like in this particular instance, Teal is working 2 different jobs right now. She works for McConnell Arts Chamber Orchestra, and she also works for Phoenix Down RPG, which is not a company that most people are going to recognize. So they are going to instantly go, okay, I don't know what this is. And you've been doing it for 4 years, roughly. 3.5. And you're doing it at the same time as another job. That's going to make them want to ask more questions about this. Are you working 2 full-time jobs? Why are you doing two things? Do they not pay you enough here? All of these things are going to come up. The next thing, internships. This is a very common thing to see on resumes. I personally think this is slightly mislabeled on this one, specifically because technically only 2 of the 5 things that she lists here are internships. Despite the fact that student ambassador here is going to be very similar to what an internship is, but the fact that you're starting this title with internships, you have 5 different things and only 2 of them are officially labeled internships is going to be a red flag to interviewers. They're going to think that you're trying to pad your resume, make you look more qualified than you actually are, which is not what's happening here. I would probably say I would change this from internships to maybe something like other experience, since she labeled this one professional experience, labeling this one other experience or additional training is a great way to be able to list all of these in the same location without coming up with it. Well, wait a minute. A radio host is not an intern. The other thing that throws me off a little bit here is general thing that you want to see is you have the company working here, you have the job title. You have the company working here, you have the job title. You have the job title, then you have the company working here. Those little things are things that someone that's reading through interviews is going to notice, and they're going to use that of, I've got 30 resumes I have to look for. They made a mistake, it goes in the garbage. Another thing that I caught while I was editing it, and I didn't edit it out on purpose, the word focused only has one S, I believe. If I'm wrong on that, Teal, correct me. But it popped up in my spell checker. Spelling error is another thing that will go, okay, I can throw this away. It sucks that something as stupid as you have an extra S in there can get your entire resume trashed. That's just how it is. So you definitely want to make sure when you're going over your resume again, make sure that everything, spell check it 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Make sure you use the right words because homonyms are really easy to use and spell checkers won't catch them all the time. So using the right sounding word but the actual wrong spelling of it is a great way to get it thrown in the garbage. Other than that, again, these little bullet points are very, very easy for me to sit there and go, okay, this is what she did. She uses job titles. She uses job titles that mean something. Marketing director, associate director of artistic programming. Those are very nice sounding job titles. Those are very important job titles. And marketing director is a universal job title. I know what a marketing director does. So seeing that she worked directly with a marketing director tells me what she knows and what she doesn't know. So those are very, very good things. And the rest of this stuff, for me, I think, generally, rule of 3 is something that's very common in just about everything. So putting 3 little bullet points below everything is not a bad idea. Because these are unpaid and they're just kind of additional stuff, I probably would not list anything here that I'm not going to use to get the interviewer. Like it's everything, every bullet point here should be something that the interview goes, I want to know more about that. Collated a national directory of venues for collegiate educational outreach. It doesn't really mean a ton to me. Helped plan and implement marketing campaigns for collegiate educational outreach focused on specific demographics and data. That shows a very specific thing. It uses a lot of buzzwords that I really like. So make sure everything that you're listing on your resume, the whole purpose of the resume is to start a conversation. You want to get to an interview. There are very few jobs that will hire you just from your resume. The resume is designed to get you an interview. Same thing here. Again, listing the things that you actually did at the job. Again, not a horrible thing, but sometimes less is more. If you just kind of list this, list the job, and then don't list absolutely everything, that actually gives the interview something like, so your arts management internship with the Manhattan School of Music, what exactly did you do there? And that gives you a much better ability than just putting a couple buzzwords in there to really talk yourself up and to really customize it as you kind of look at the interviewer, you look at the things that they seem interested in, you look at the things that they don't seem interested in. These are a little bit better. And I, with the student ambassador for the New York Philharmonic, I probably wouldn't have even put a bullet point under that. I probably just would have put that in there again as another invitation for the interviewer to go, hey, what was it like being a student ambassador? What did you do? Because again, we want the interview, you want to be a conversation. You want the interviewer to be talking to you, asking you questions, things like that. This actually is a big deal. Anytime you can say you did the first something, it's a big deal. It shows that you're an innovator. It shows that you're someone that is willing to do something that people haven't done before. So this 100% put that in there. Not only that, that opens up questions that the interviewer can ask you. Really? So you started the station's first weekly classical music radio program. Why? What drove you to do that? What kind of hurdles did you have to go through to do that? That's all great stuff for interviewers. And then Clarinet Festival. Again, this one is a little bit kind of watered down for me. It might be something that I might even leave off the resume if the resume was getting a little bit too long, because it doesn't tell me a whole lot other than you worked in logistics. And we already have seen in other areas of the resume that you have a logistical background. So this is one that I'm like, it fits. It's not too wordy or anything, but I'm not going to ask about it. As an interviewer, I'm not going to sit there and go, really, what was the Clarinet Festival like at UW-Madison? It's just not something that means anything. Education, this is on every single resume. You have to have it on there. If you don't have a degree or anything like this, Teal here actually has a master's of music and oboe performance and a bachelor's of music and oboe performance. And the school, again, she didn't go to this school, but she went to a school of similar clout. If you're not familiar with the Manhattan School of Music, it's one of the top music conservatives, not only in the country, in the world. So listing the school, showing that you have a master's degree, those are all things that are important. So, and this is exactly how you should do it. List your school, list your degree, list when you got it. Because that's going to tell me how long have you been out of school, how long did it take you to go from getting your degree to getting a job. Because that's also going to tell me a lot about how well you did in school. If you got your degree and then it took you 2 or 3 years to actually get a job, that's going to tell me either you didn't care about getting it or using the degree that you got, or you didn't do well enough to be able to use that degree to get you a job. So, yeah, dates are always important. This is another thing, super, super useful. And I love how it's put here. And I don't know if this is one of the things that I actually didn't format the way that you have it in your original resume, Tio. Awards are always a good thing. Again, they make you stand out. They give the interviewer something to ask you about. And these are really good awards. Civic Engineer or Civic Engagement Scholar. That sounds really cool. That has a lot of buzzwords. I have no idea what that means. So I'm going to ask about that because it is listed under her awards. It sounds prestigious, and she got it when she was in graduate school. Awards are more difficult to get in graduate school in general. So that's something I'm going to ask about. This just goes to show that she did very well in undergrad. Scholarships. There are tons of scholarships out there. A lot of people don't realize how many are out there and how much free money you can get to go to college. There are literally millions of dollars of scholarships that are not used every year simply because people don't know about them. And I had tons of friends that got scholarships not because, they worked really, really hard for them. It's simply because they applied for them and no one else did because nobody looked for them. So seeing multiple scholarships on a resume means that the person that did the resume knew enough to look for scholarships and was willing to work to get them. And I will probably ask about the scholarships as well. I'll go, hey, so, you're Presser Scholar. exactly, what did that entail? What was it? Because that's going to give me a little bit of idea of her work ethic. It's going to give me a little bit of a peek into her thought processes and things like that. And again, it's going to start a conversation that's going to allow Teal to sell herself even more, to make herself look that much more impressive, to be able to customize everything to the interview in question and really be able to solidify the impact that she has. The most important thing that a resume should do, and an interview as well, is it should make you memorable. That's what you want. So many times, the people that I hired may not have been the 100% most qualified for the position. I hired them because I remembered them. Because, and this is coming from my training background, if you have a good trainer in your company, it doesn't matter how qualified your applicant is. You can train them to do the job. That doesn't actually matter. It's helpful, and it costs them a lot less money to not train you. And there's certain positions where you need some training beforehand. But being memorable is more important than being qualified. Every single time. I have told people, and I have been told on multiple occasions, apply for jobs that you don't technically meet the qualifications for. If you can be memorable enough, they might just bring you in for the interview to go, why did you apply for this position? And you can go, it looks like I'm not qualified. I don't know this. I don't know this. But I'm a really fast learner. You can see from what I've done here, I have experience in doing this and this and this and this, which will bring something new to your company that you don't have already. Yeah, you can pick somebody with an MBA to run this department, and they will probably do a perfectly satisfactory job, and they will probably make sure that this department runs like hundreds of thousands of other departments across the country. Or you can hire me, and I can bring something brand new to the company, and I can do something that hasn't been done 100,000 times before, which will give us a competitive edge against everyone else in this market. So, now I've gone over all of this stuff. Teal, do you have any insights or anything that you want to kind of bring up about your own experiences just in everything?
Not yet, but I'm sure I will after the interview.
Okay, cool. So, to give you guys some background, the position I'm going to interview her for is going to be at a generic corporation. She's interviewing for what's called a mid-level management position because she has a master's degree. In general, if you have a master's degree, you are not going to get anything below entry-level management, and even entry-level management with a master's degree, like bachelor's degree, gets you entry-level management. Masters in anything, it doesn't matter. You could have a master's in Japanese literature. You can get a management job with that. They really just care that you have a master's degree because it's hard to do. So she's going to be applying for a job in what's called mid-level management, which means she's going to have some managers that work under her and staff underneath them that all technically report to her, and she's going to have some managers that work above her that she has to report to, executives and things like that. So she's not at the top of the food chain, she's not at the bottom. That's why they call it mid-level management. And it's a great place to start in corporate America in general, because generally mid-level management has really, really good opportunities for growth within that company and within other companies as well. And they get paid relatively well. You're going to be making higher than median salary in general, just starting off in mid-level management. So let's actually go to the interview itself. One thing I'm going to mention before the interview gets started, and it's a very important part of an interview that a lot of people don't even think about, and we can't actually demonstrate for you because we are nowhere near each other, is the handshake. It's a touchy subject for some people because depending on your interviewer and their personal preferences and things like that, A lot of people are not sure, should I give a handshake, should I not? As someone who does interviews, I prefer a handshake because a handshake tells me a lot about somebody. So I would always start off every one of my interviews. First of all, I'd have their resume in front of me. I would know their name. And I would go, "Hi, Teal," and I would extend my hand as I said hi, and I would see if she instantly just grabbed it, gave me a nice firm handshake. If she went, "Oh, hi," oh, handshake. It is the first interaction you're going to have. It's going to give your first impression, and the handshake itself. You want to have a good, firm handshake. You don't want to crush their hand, but you want to make sure it feels determined. It tells the interviewer so much. It really does. A limp handshake, I'm not going to hire you. Unless you really blow me away in your interview, a limp handshake, I'm not going to hire. If you kind of second guess yourself, you're not sure if you want to take it or not, I'm going to hesitate in hiring you because I've given you the opportunity to show me something and you're hesitating already. And we don't want to see hesitation in an interview. If they don't offer you a handshake, read the room. You never want to offer a handshake and have them just stare at it because that creates an awkward situation, and that's not the way you want to be remembered. But I generally, the other thing, if you can, learn your interviewer's name. In general, they'll send you a thing with their name on it. Greet them by name. Hello, in this particular instance, "Hello, Mr. Hall. My name is Teal." Extend the hand, and then give it a second or two. If they instantly reach out and grab your hand, that's fine. Otherwise, without blinking, without emphasizing or anything, just remove the hand like it's not a big deal, like it's a completely normal response. Sit down and get ready for the interview. So we're going to go ahead and start this interview. We're going to pretend that you've already introduced yourself. You had a good handshake, and we're going to go from there. So go up to, back to the top. So, Miss Buck, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. How about you?
I'm doing well. Getting a little bit frazzled. I think you're my fourth interview today, so yeah, lots and lots of work. But to be honest, your resume intrigues me. You have a large background in music, an impressive background in music, to be honest. This isn't a musical job. I mean, I'm fine if you want to bring your oboe to work with you, but this isn't really a musical job. So what really drew you to us? What drew you to apply for the job?
Well, honestly, my background in music has given me a lot of skills that would be valuable at your company. My undergraduate degree, graduate, and beyond, I have learned how to be a section leader, offering advice to the other oboes in my section, coordinating anything that weekly, but also working with the other section leaders to make the best music possible. In my undergraduate degree, I actually got to start a lot of projects, as you might see on my resume, a radio show featuring classical music, which was the first that they'd ever had. And it was a lot of fun figuring out the logistics, and those types of skills make me very marketable for your company.
Okay. So, I mean, the job itself, you're going to be running our customer service department, and you'll have three managers working underneath you, and then you'll also be answering to myself and the other partners of this part of the business. So as far as you mentioned being a section leader and working with other section leaders, what were some of the things that you did to motivate the members of your section to learn their parts, things like that. What were some of the techniques that you used?
Well, mostly my sections would be motivated by themselves, but on the rare occasion that school was getting them down or they had a lot going, we would actually have oboe section like hangout nights where we'd get together, listen to the piece of music with each other, and talk about our favorite recordings, what we liked about the music, sometimes what we didn't like, use it as bonding time to really delve into the inner workings of the piece.
Sorry, just taking a few notes here. Fantastic. So, your undergrad degree. You went to UW Madison, very, very nice school. You majored in oboe performance, and then you were able to make it into the Manhattan School of Music, and then you mastered in oboe performance. That's a big that's a big step. I mean, UW Madison's a really, really great school, but it's kind of at a different league than the Manhattan School of Music. What was kind of your motivation for looking specifically at the Manhattan School of Music, and what were some of the steps that you took to get there?
Well, since I first started playing oboe, Manhattan was my dream college. That's where all the oboe professors went that I admired. That's where I had studied. So it was kind of like I was born into the pedigree of that school. Leading up to college applications, I practiced at least 4 hours a day, made reads at least 4 hours a day as well.
Oh, so you made your own
Not
reads? Sorry to interrupt. You made your own reads?
correct. Basically, I would be making my own mouthpiece that produces the sound for the instrument.
I'm familiar with the oboe. I'm just I guess I'm not as familiar with high end oboe playing. Having I played in band in high school and college. Most of the oboe players I knew just bought reeds as the same. I played saxophone. I bought all my own reeds. I never made my own reeds. So is that a common practice for high end oboists that they make their own reeds, or was that something that you just you did specifically to have more control over your sound and things like that?
When you get into the more finessed thing, oboe or bassoon, as they're both double reed instruments, it does become a requirement at some point to learn how to make your own reeds. It actually started for me when I was a freshman, that I had very little experience with making them. So she gave me the tough love treatment where I better learn how to make them or I had nothing to play in band that week.
And obviously, you learned quick enough. So sorry for cutting you off. That's one thing I thought was interesting. So going back to your preparation to get into the Manhattan School of Music.
So a lot of that was my own personal dedication in the practice room or at the reed desk, taking my lessons very seriously when I had a professor. I also went on visits to campuses. I only auditioned for 3 schools because I knew it's either those 3 schools or bust. So I could focus very much so on the recording. And then the day came, I performed really well, and I got in.
Fantastic. So, bring up your resume again here. Let's talk about this radio program. First of all, did you have a name for it?
It was called Bach, Beethoven, and the Rest.
Okay, interesting. What kind of things did you go through to create this first premier classical radio program for the school?
So focused on was trying to bring in a live musician from the area at least twice a month. where they were studio. And on the other two scheduled radio programs that I didn't have a guest, I would talk about local concerts that were going. There were tickets, and I would devise a little set list of pieces to play, emphasizing a certain theme for that day,
Okay.
whether it be about rondos or about concertos, classical music accessible to non-classical people.
So you'd say there was definitely an educational aspect to the show, unlike maybe like a top 20 station where it was for entertainment purpose mostly. This is very much geared towards an educational aspect, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And to emphasize all the wonderful local musicians in the area.
Okay. Very, very cool. So not only was it educational, you also kind of could use it as for local musicians. This was a marketing tool for them. This is a way for them to get their name and their music out there a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Exactly.
interesting. So what really was the start of the process? What were the first steps? Did you get approached by the radio station? Did you go to the radio station itself? I'd like to hear a little more about the genesis of the show itself.
Well, the summer before my show started, I was in a woodwind quintet, and we were fundraising money, trying to raise money for our trip for the Amani Winds Festival. And so we went to radio shows, played music, talked with the hosts, and two hosts from that station told me that I had a radio voice, and they invited me to talk to their manager about. I was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. So flash forward 2 months after the festival's over, I contact the manager, and then I get to meet them in studio, and they date.
Wow. So the turnaround time from this, kind of being planted in your head to being an actual show that was going on was 2-3 months, somewhere in there.
Yes.
That's very impressive. Very, very, very impressive. Now, I'd like to
When
ask
I
you.
see an opportunity, I like to seize the moment.
It's fantastic. We love to hear things like that here. I'd like to ask you about Fifth House Ensemble. I did a little bit of research. I was able to find a little bit of information on just about everything. Fifth House Ensemble was unique. I wasn't able to find a lot of other, a ton of information beyond their website. To me, it looks like they're a musical group. I'm assuming.
Yes.
And I like the website and stuff like that. What exactly was your experience with Fifth House Ensemble?
So Fifth House Ensemble actually came to the Manhattan School of Music to give a concert and advertise their summer festival. And I actually got the opportunity to play with them for that advertising concert. And they invited me personally, and I did. I had a wonderful 2 weeks getting to know them, and particularly the executive director, Melissa Snoza. What stuck out to me about her, not only was she an amazing flutist, amazing woman in control of a fantastic organization. So I started chatting with her about ways that I could interact with Fifth House after the festival was over, and they need their long distance intern, as we do not live in the same city. And so I would help a lot with the databases that need to be cultivated online for their educational concerts.
So it was a lot of telecommunicating.
Correct.
Very interesting. Well, that's to be honest, that's really impressive that you were able to kind of turn just a chance encounter into a really good educational experience. It sounds like. So going to what you do now. Let's start with what you've been doing the longest, Phoenix Down RPG. Tell me about it. It's not something I'm familiar with at all. What is it, and what do you do as part of Phoenix Down?
Phoenix Down RPG is a a woodwind trio founded, and I'm the executive director of the organization. We like to play music in the community. We do arrangement of non-classical music, klezmer, and also video game music arrangements, as you might have seen researching us on YouTube. But another thing that we do is interact with people that go to orchestra concerts, whether it be a financial barrier or the not wanting to dress up in tails to go see a classical concert. So community schools and other ways and give performances in a very non-traditional format where we might be doing an interactive music with story, or we might do any sort of thing to just try to get the audience engaged and out of their seats during the performance.
Very interesting. And then the McConnell Arts Chamber Orchestra seems a little bit more kind of a traditional job, where it looks like a lot of database management and organizational type things.
Correct, yes. I will hire the personnel that play on the orchestra concerts and coordinate communication between the conductor and the executive director with the orchestra.
Interesting. So, I'm liking what I'm liking what I'm seeing here. However, again, this is it's a lot of music, a lot of organizational and things like that. How do you see the things that you've learned in your internships, in your current job? How do you see those translating to, managing a team of managers and all of their employees as well?
Well, as a musician, I constantly perform in high stress environments, and I see a position like the one that you currently have as a similar type of program where at high stress, but as long as you have your stuff together, you can succeed. And I'm used to motivating the others in my section or the other sections to help get the jobs done, coordinating emails or phone calls to get contracts written and out to the employees. I also facilitate the payroll, which is a huge thing. So all of this experience while being in music is very relatable to corporate life.
Makes perfect sense to me. What questions do you have for me?
What are you looking for in your applicants for this job?
Well, that's a really good question. I'm looking for someone that is going to be a very take charge kind of person, someone that's going to innovate, someone that is going to be very proactive in their management style, where they're going to be looking for problems before they happen and finding ways to either circumvent them or minimize anything that could happen. Someone that is going to be able to hire and train quality staff and be able to lead really well. And from what I'm seeing here, that seems to fit what you're saying. So, any other questions for me?
None that come to the top of my head, but I'm sure I'll think of a few later. Do you mind if I email you if I have a question?
Definitely. You should already have my contact information. I emailed you to set up the interview, so feel free to contact me. Otherwise, like I said, I've got a couple more interviews today. We're probably going to be having the interviews continuing on for at least the rest of the week. So if we do decide to move forward with you in the interview process, we'll contact you. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming in, and I wish you luck in your job search.
Thank you. It was wonderful to meet you, and I look forward to hearing back about this opportunity.
And that's basically an interview. I actually intended to add in a couple. I actually did intend to ask a couple of questions that I didn't, simply because, again, she had a really good resume here and she led the conversation pretty well. So I didn't have to ask questions like this. This is a question you will get in almost every single interview you ever have. What would you say is your greatest weakness? The interviewer does not actually care what your greatest weakness is. This question is specifically designed to see, first of all, what kind of an ego you have. And second of all, it's meant to be a problem-solving exercise. It's meant to see if, can you reflect on your own self? Are you going to tell me something that paints you in a bad light, or are you going to be able to take a negative and turn it into a positive? That is the entire purpose of that question. There are a lot of questions like that. You'll also hear, what would you say is your greatest strength? One of the questions I used to ask all the time was, give me an example of a time you went above and beyond to help out a customer. These are all things that I don't actually care about the specifics. I'm looking for your problem-solving skills. I'm looking to see how you talk about yourself. I'm looking to see what you're looking for. Otters, Ottsores, I think is the name. Appreciates the advice that you're giving in there. I have no idea what your background is. However, again, I've got about 4 years of experience doing this. I've hired a couple dozen different people in quite a few different places. And I've also been trained by people that do a lot of interviewing. So, and I also know from reading how to get hired books and things like that written by experts in the field that greatest weakness question is exactly what I said. So appreciate it. If you want to ask questions when we open it up for the Q&A, I really do want to hear from you. But we're not really looking for advice from the chat just yet. Again, Teal, as she's already shown, has a pretty extensive background in hiring musicians and things like that. And again, this is what I used to get paid to do. So, anyway, just kind of going back over. Sorry. Thank you. So just going back over the interview itself. One of the things that I noticed, and this is more of a personal thing than anything else, but it will show up in other interviews, you were a little bit monotone in your delivery, and it comes off a little bit more like you're bored, which is...
No, I just don't want to click the mic.
Well, that could be it as well. But even facial expression stuff like that, you weren't being incredibly expressive or anything like that. And you don't want to be like full blown, I am an actor or anything. But you do want to seem a little bit more interested, and I wasn't getting that from you. One of the things that I would say was a little bit of a hiccup that you recovered from pretty well. When I asked about how do you motivate your section, the worst answer you can ever get when you're asked a question of something like, how can I, how do you motivate this, or, how do you do this, is, well, I really didn't do anything. The employees did it. We never want to hear that, because that's going to tell me that well, you're going to wait for the employees to manage themselves as opposed to managing the employees. A better way to kind of phrase that, even if you do have that, is something around the, well, to be honest, I was kind of lucky because I had really motivated people. And instead of having to motivate them to practice and things like that, I really only had to direct their motivation to make sure that we were hitting the goals that we wanted to, which is kind of where you led back to. But that first initial, well, I really didn't motivate them, you don't want to say that in an interview. Because again, that's going to tell the interviewer that, well, I don't really manage. I let the employees manage themselves, and they never want to hear that. Despite the fact that it can be a very effective way to run a business, it requires that you have a really, really solid team, and you're very rarely going to get that in the real world. That's how it works, unfortunately. So other than that, I was trying to take a few notes. I took entirely one note because typing is a pain in the butt with a tremor. So what was your feeling on the interview? Like, how did you feel during the interview itself?
Well, usually I feel like I'm trying to make a conversation with the other person. And for this particular interview, I didn't do as well on that aspect. I didn't make it feel as natural as I could have.
See, other than the little bit of monotone, I disagree. I thought we had a really nice kind of dialogue going back and forth. Like, again, I thought you led the interview well, but I'm interested
Okay.
to hear that that was your view of it. And that's another thing. Being on the other side, for those of you that are looking for jobs and things like that, that's something that you're going to have happen every so often, that you're going to feel that you did a poor job when in fact you didn't. You did a very good job. So always be aware of that kind of self-awareness, that you're generally going to be your own worst critic. And what she said is exactly what you want. Teal and I were talking before. There's quite a few different kind of interview styles you can go with. In corporate America, once you start getting into some of the jobs that require master's degrees or require 5-10 years experience, you will have I call them the confrontational interviews, where the interviewer themselves does everything they can to not become personal with you, does everything they can to keep the kind of divide between I am the interviewer, you're the interviewee, and it's a very standoffish type interview, and it's designed specifically to put you in a pressure situation and see how you react to pressure. If you can take that interview and change it from kind of a confrontation to see who's going to break first into a conversation, that will really, really impress your interviewer, and will definitely err in your favor as far as the interview is done. And again, a lot of different interviewers have different things. I'm a very casual interviewer because I like to see people with their guards down, simply because my emphasis was in training and things like that. And so when I was interviewing people, their previous skills were not as important to me because I was going to train them anyway. But seeing what they were like when they were more casual would give me a better insight into what they were going to be like with other employees and things like that. So yeah, those are the kind of things that I focused on. Sorry for cutting you off a little bit. Any other feelings you had about the interview itself? I'm going to move this over so it looks like I'm actually talking to you.
Oh, hi. There were a couple of questions that I was not expecting from you, and one of them you caught, which was the how do you motivate your section.
That
Um,
that one is actually a really, really common question, especially for management positions, because part of management is motivation. You have to understand how to motivate your employees, and a good interviewer is going to do their best to try and find ways to link what you've told them to what you're actually going to be doing. And motivating, the people under you is part of your job description. So, yeah, that question, that's one of the questions that is in the interviewer's handbook. They always do that. Anything else?
Well, actually, that's interesting because I've never been asked that question
Really?
either.
Well, again,
So I've
how many management jobs have you applied for?
True, not very many, but
Mm-hmm.
I have been in quasi-management
Mm-hmm.
roles.
And again, each person's a little bit different in what they do. Again, I asked that question because it was on one of the things that you have to do in retail, which really sucks, is you will be given interview guides where you are given questions that you have to ask. And as you get higher and higher in retail, you get more and more freedom in your interview questions. But when I first started off, that was one of the questions that that was on one of the entry level management questionnaires. Was how do you motivate people? The other one, like I said, is give me an example. That was one thing when I asked you about setting up the radio station. You went into talking about the radio station itself, and after it was already set up, and the question itself was, how did you set it up? So really listening carefully to what your interviewer is asking you for. The information you gave me was really good. And it gave me more questions I could ask you, but I did technically have to ask the same question twice. No, how did you start it? And to be honest, the fact that it took you, what was it, 2 months from inception to launching the show?
Yeah.
Yeah. The fact that that took 2 months from someone that develops shows now is impressive. Like, that's a lot of work to do, especially getting guests and things like that. Like, that is a very labor-intensive job. And so that was a very impressive thing that I had to really kind of dig out of you. That I think was more of a selling point for that aspect of your experience than the stuff that you gave me. So another thing during an interview, listen to your interviewer. Make sure something that you can do, especially if they ask you a question you're not 100% sure on, rephrase the question back to them. Go, are you asking this or are you asking this? It's never going to look bad when you ask for clarification. It's actually going to be another feather in your cap to make you look like someone that's not simply just going to bulldoze into things. They're going to take the time to analyze the problem before finding a solution. And it makes sure that you're answering the questions that they're asking. Another thing, if you ever are hit with one of those curveball questions that just no idea, I did it when she asked me a question, which was, that's a very good question. If you start off your response with you look indecisive and you look bad. However, if you go, that's a good question, let me think about it, that little bit of time gives you enough time to start formulating your answer for this question you weren't prepared for without looking like you're unprepared, without looking like you're not able to articulate yourself well. So get used to using the phrase, that's a good question, because it's invaluable in interviews. So yeah, going through the process and everything like that, we did have one person who was being a little bit belligerent a little before. Otherwise, if there is anyone in chat, I'll... So, if there's anybody in chat that has any questions for us, or if you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to ask questions in the comments below. I will be answering them. And Teal too, if she actually checks the comments on someone else's video. Um, uh, Feel free to ask us any questions that you have. I'm not seeing too many people in chat right now. So this might be where we end it. But Teal, did you have any other questions or any other things that we didn't really touch on that from your experience are important in just kind of the job application process?
Well, one thing I would like to point out is a couple of the resources that are out there to help build different types of skill sets. I've used Digital Garage, which is Google's thing right now. There's also Facebook Blueprints and Lydia. Usually get a free subscription with your library. And that's just another way to bump up your resume and build more valuable experience for whatever job you're looking for.
So I had Digital Garage. I'm just typing these into chat so people can physically see them. So is Digital Garage, what were the other ones?
Facebook Blueprints. And then Lydia, Lydia.
Lydia?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So yeah, definitely check out those. I am actually not aware of any of those. I have not used them before, so always interested to find new things. You said Digital Garage is done by Google.
Yes.
I'm going to go on a limb here and say Facebook Blueprints is done by Facebook.
Yeah, you got it.
And Lydia, is that just a company name, or do you know if they have like an overarching company that they belong to?
I think that's the company name. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
But they have a variety of courses that you can take through their server.
Awesome. Any other tips or tricks that you've learned?
As a female, sometimes it can be difficult knowing how much makeup is too much makeup and how much is not enough. So for those that are curious about that, I would say minimal. You don't want it to pop being like this huge color, but just a little bit to give color if that's how you feel comfortable. Or you can do it without makeup. I've done without makeup. And then just make sure that your clothing is comfortable and not too tight.
Yeah. Grooming standards in general. Obviously, women have additional grooming standards that they have to worry about. But grooming in general, you do want to make sure dress for the job. If you're interviewing for a position that you're going to be wearing kind of casual clothes, like working in retail or something like that, you should show up in one level of dress higher in general. So you're interviewing for kind of a casual job, show up in business casual. You're interviewing for, a more business casual kind of job, show up in full business attire. I would probably say avoid tails. Unless you are, auditioning to be a concert pianist, and then I think tails are required. Yeah, make sure that you are dressing to show that you respect your interviewer and that you're taking it seriously. And then obviously, my knowledge of makeup is limited to stage makeup. So my opinion on it would be nothing. Like I can tell you how to make yourself look 60 years older, but I don't think that'll help you in an interview. So, yeah, definitely what Teal said, take her advice much more than mine on makeup standards. The other thing I wanted to talk about is another really important thing. You need to research the company that you're interviewing for. Teal was put in a bad position here because the company she was interviewing for doesn't exist. And I didn't want to use a real company just because it could create issues with tons of different things and would have required me to learn about the company just as much as she did. But you should learn about your company. Do a Google search. Learn about the things that they do. If you can quote, like mission statements will show up on company websites. They will almost always have mission statements on there somewhere. You have to look for them a lot of the times. But if you can answer with their mission statement, or you can take parts of their mission statement and work it into your answer, that is a huge deal for interviewing in general, because it's going to get you to stick into their head. And again, when they hire you, they're under the impression that they're going to have to teach you the mission statement. They're going to have to teach you the corporate culture. If you come into the interview already preaching to them about their own mission statement and using their own words to describe yourself, that is already an association that they're making of, she already has the ideals that we want her to. The things that we're going to have to train her to do, she already knows. So it's a very, very effective technique. If you can find their mission statement, find the About Us page, and be able, or find something noteworthy about the company that's happened in the news recently, or something good. Don't bring up bad things in the interview, or you won't get the job. Those are the things that are going to change it from, hey, this is a good interview, to I'm going to remember this person. And it can lead to a second interview or a job offer. In general, it's very rare that you will get a job offer during an interview, or at least during a primary interview. In some, lower end jobs, like if you're doing minimum wage stuff, they might offer you the job right there on the spot. But even then, a lot of times they will go, well, we have other interviewers. If we decide to go forward with you, we'll call you. And that's specifically meant to prevent them from calling, or encourage them not to call us back and hound us with, hey, did I get the job? Hey, did I get the job? Hey, did I get the job? Because it annoys the hell out of us. One thing I do recommend after an interview, especially if you, because she asked for the contact information, get some way to contact your interviewer. After the interview, wait a few hours, maybe a day or something like that, and email them a thank you. Thank you for taking the time to interview me. I really enjoyed getting to know more about your company, and being able to talk to you about what I could possibly bring to it. I look forward to hearing back from you as soon as is possible. Here's my contact info again. That's another thing that just kind of makes you stick in their head. So anyone else in chat, if you have any questions or comments or anything like that, this is the Q&A section of here. So if you do have any questions, even if you've just come in and you're just catching the tail end of it, feel free to ask them if we've covered them already. We may just mention, hey, we covered them already, or we'll talk to them again. And if you did miss any part of this, it will be going up on my YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/trainerjody. I will have Teal's contact info in the description there as well, so you can follow her stuff, like Phoenix RPG, or Phoenix Down RPG, sorry. Yeah. Any other questions from people in chat with a 30-second delay? As I kind of look to see who we have. Again, the whole purpose of this is really to kind of identify the aspects of the job hunting process that you should focus on, and the aspects that you can just avoid, like the personality tests. They're just there to weed out. They're not important. They really, really aren't. Don't completely blow them off, because they can prevent you from getting a job, but they will never come up after your initial interview ever. Whereas, the actual interview, making sure you ask questions, because most interviews will end with, do you have any questions for me? The worst thing you can do is say no, because it shows that you're not interested in the company, whether or not you are. So ask something. Doesn't matter what it is. Ask them something about the company. It makes you look that much more interested. Anything else from you, Teal?
I think that about covers it.
Okay. Well, we're not getting any questions from chat, so this is where I am going to end it. Teal, if people want to follow you or see the stuff that you do online, where can they find you?
So I am on Twitter and Instagram down RPG. We're also
You
on
skipped just a second there. Can you say that one more time?
Sure Thing. We are on my ensemble and I are on Twitter and Instagram at Phoenix Down RPG. We're also on Facebook and YouTube. We do Dungeons and Dragons, so come check us out.
And obviously, again, I'm Trainer Jody. I'm Trainer Jody everywhere. I normally run D&D stuff on this channel, and I have I run two different campaigns on this channel on Wednesday nights, and every other Saturday I run a game on Zelda Universe TV, twitch.tv/Zelda Universe TV, which is a Zelda RPG using the Open Legend system. So if you're interested in that stuff, my YouTube channel is a bit eclectic. I do everything from singing to training videos like this to D&D related content to rants about what's going on in the world, just a little bit of everything. So feel free if you want to, you can follow me here on Twitch, check out my YouTube channel, follow me on Twitter. I generally tweet before I go live. Otherwise, that's all for me today, and I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.